The year 2007 changed how people bought technology. Instead of buying software to make their computers useful, consumers started buying compelling hardware, and the software just came along for the ride. Apple capitalized on this by building a closed, cohesive ecosystem. Your phone, your tablet, and your laptop were designed to work seamlessly together out of the box. This chart shows exactly what that shift did to the market between 2008 and 2009. Apple saw a 37% spike in sales, while Microsoft's global dominance dropped to just 3%. Microsoft had a structural problem. They were a business-to-business software company that heavily relied on large corporate licenses, and they were suddenly losing ground to a direct-to-consumer hardware brand. To stop the bleed, Microsoft realized they couldn't just write better code. They had to figure out how to use physical retail space to secure a long-term advantage against a rival that was winning on hardware. Traditionally, if you bought Microsoft software, you did it here. You walked into a third-party big-box retailer and bought a license pre-packaged inside a partner machine. That meant Microsoft had zero control over how their product was presented. They couldn't guarantee the display quality, the lighting, or the training of the salesperson pitching their operating system. Their solution was to launch their own branded retail locations, putting direct-to-consumer storefronts in high-traffic malls. Because they hired former Apple managers and used similar sleek layouts, the market quickly labeled this a defensive copycat maneuver. But calling it a simple copycat strategy misreads the situation. A software company uses physical real estate very differently than a hardware company does. Apple's retail locations are built around prestige branding. Their objective is to move high-margin physical inventory out the front doors. Microsoft relies on relationship marketing. They needed physical spaces to educate users on how their software actually connects different devices together. Look at how these models compare. Apple sells hardware. Microsoft sells software. Therefore, their marketing styles diverge. Apple focuses on prestige, while Microsoft focuses on relationship building. This brings us to the store's actual goal. Apple needs revenue. Microsoft needs consumer data. Apple built stores to sell boxes. Microsoft built stores to teach people how to use ecosystems and to figure out why they leave them. Maintaining prime retail space is incredibly expensive. Microsoft internally justified that overhead by treating these locations as real-world behavioral laboratories. They needed to watch actual users navigate their interfaces. They observed where customers clicked, what features caused frustration, and where the software created friction in ways that online surveys could never capture. This was crucial because Microsoft's operating systems had to run on thousands of different third-party machines, weighed down by clunky hardware and legacy ports. This is why Microsoft stores often featured far more salespeople than products on the floor. The goal wasn't to speed up checkout times. It was to maximize one-on-one interactions to gather qualitative data. Microsoft measured the success of these stores by the flow of first-party insights sent back to headquarters to fix product development, prioritizing ecosystem intelligence over daily register receipts. But turning a retail store into a massive testing lab carries a significant business risk: channel conflict. Channel conflict happens when you open up a direct-to-consumer storefront that competes directly against the very partners who distribute your core products. Microsoft still relied on partners like Dell, HP, and local electronics retailers for the vast majority of its global software distribution. Opening a glossy flagship Microsoft store in the same mall as the retailers selling those partner machines risks alienating the exact supply chain keeping the company afloat. They had to strike a careful balance. They needed the first-hand data from their own stores, but they couldn't push so hard that their hardware partners decided to drop Microsoft entirely. Building a direct line to your customer is a dangerous move if it damages the third-party network you rely on to reach the global market. If you judge a software company's retail footprint purely by how many laptops they sell per square foot, you are using a flawed analytical model. Look at this quadrant chart. Under the Apple model, physical retail is a sales channel, requiring high effort for short-term revenue. The Microsoft laboratory approach requires that same high effort, but trades short-term sales for long-term strategic impact. You don't measure the success of a lab by daily sales. You measure it by how effectively it keeps users in your ecosystem and informs your next product cycle. For business operators, This strategy works if you have deep capital reserves and desperately need qualitative user data to fix friction points in your user experience. However, if your business operates on a fragile network of third-party distributors, stay away. The blowback from channel conflict could easily outweigh the insights you gather. The practical takeaway is that you can copy a competitor's physical aesthetic, like their custom store lighting, their minimalist wooden tables, or their open floor layout, without copying their underlying business model. Microsoft understood that those physical interactions in the store were actually just data points waiting to be collected. Physical retail allows a brand to move beyond the transaction and observe exactly why a customer needs a product in the first place, turning a storefront into a primary